So without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to Haley Revel, who is going to be facilitating today's presentation. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amanda, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're excited to spend some time with you today talking about goal setting and hopefully sharing some tips and ideas and our personal experiences about things that have worked in the process of setting goals, and pass along some information to all of you on how you can do this successfully. So before we jump in, what I'd love to do is give our panelists a chance to do a quick introduction of themselves. I believe everyone is on and has joined now. So Kevin, if you're out there, then if you would just do a quick intro of yourself, your role at Accenture, and anything else that you'd like to share, that'd be great.
Hello, my name is Kevin Clark, and I am an instructional designer for the Texas Medicaid and Healthcare Partnership account here at Accenture. I like to say that I write training materials so that doctors can get paid for seeing little kids. And our most vulnerable Texans I have a passion for helping them out. I have been a trainer for lots of years, 25 years or more. And I have had a lot of training in SMART goals through my involvement with the Scouts BSA and Cub Scout packs, and training adult leaders on setting SMART goals, etc. So that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. I look forward to talking more with you about SMART goals when we get to that topic then. Lana.
Yes, hey, Lana Petru, thanks for having me. I'm really appreciative of the invite, and so excited to talk to you guys today. I work in T&O, mostly in change management. However, spend the majority of my time and the bulk of my career in training and education. So my career started in K through 12. So I have a passion as well for education, and still have a nonprofit that focuses on ensuring that families that with non-native English speaking families are connected to schools and able to communicate with the schools. So very excited to be here and offer whatever nuggets that I have over the years with lots of success, but also lots of failures along the way, and looking forward to it. So thank you.
Excellent. Miss Carron, I know you were out there.
Yes, I am, and now I'm off mute. Hi, everyone. So I am a technology delivery lead, managing director out of the Austin office. I have been involved in implementing technical systems for government clients my entire career. And I am in my 26th year with the company. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be back involved with this organization, because I remember back in the day when I used to do some one-on-one mentoring, and it's been a while. So I'm glad to be involved today and to share nuggets about goal setting. I, like Lana, have lots of failures in this space. So I feel like you learn the most from your failures. And so I look forward to sharing with everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Carron. And a quick introduction for myself. So I've been with Accenture for about 14 years, came to the company as an experienced hire. My role in the company is focused on helping our global HR teams deliver services to our employees so that our employees can best support clients. So I actually lead programs and initiatives that are kind of priority for leadership in different countries around the world and also at the global level. So I get to really work at a level to touch and ensure that we're taking care of our people in the best way possible, which is something that I love. Like all of you, I've got lots of failure experiences to be able to share, and Carron agree that I think that that's where the best growth comes from, especially when it's setting goals, both with personal and professional experience. And so I'd love for us to jump in. We have some slides, and I can share them out if that's something, Amanda, that we'd like to do at the end. I think that this session is also being recorded. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent. So let's go ahead and jump right into the content. There's 6 really key areas that we're going to be covering with you all today. And more than anything, instead of draining slides, my interest is in us having a conversation. And between Kevin, Lana, Carron, and myself, really being able to share our experiences and going through some of the different examples that we have, as well as some tips and tricks that we may be able to provide, best practices, et cetera. So I think something that is very important when it comes to setting a goal is understanding who you are. There is a fundamental aspect of your identity, your belief systems, your values, the core of who you are as a being that drives how you set goals and whether or not you accomplish those goals. So many times we have these goals that come up in mind. You think about, at the start of the new year, I'm going to go and I'm going to lose 25 pounds and work out at the gym every single day. And you have these lofty ideas and dreams. And I'm sure we have many examples that we can share as we continue the conversation to really discuss that. But the important thing is that if I don't understand myself, my circumstances, if I don't understand my identity and that maybe I'm not a gym person, or maybe I don't like to run, or maybe I want to focus on a certain way to accomplish my goal that doesn't match up with 99% of the world and everything that media throws at me, I'm not going to succeed if I don't know that about myself before I set up my goal. So the first thing we have to do is really focus on our identity and self-awareness, knowing who we are, knowing who we want to become, and that aspiration of the things that are really important and driving us to get us where we want to go. There are attitudes about us, things that we perceive in who we are, how we see ourselves, and how others may see us, as well as how we truly treat others around us in different situations, how we interact with people at a restaurant versus the gym, all of these things pre-COVID. Hopefully we'll get back there someday. But understanding those interactions, understanding those things about yourself, help to really establish that identity, and being self-aware of that is critical when you start to build and lay out those goals so that you know what your obstacles are going to look like when you have to take decision points to overcome them. There are things that you can focus on, your ethics, personal, professional ethics, and the way that you operate that may be different from other people around you and that could impact how you're looking to achieve the goal, as well as just your integrity and the way that you do things, and then the relationships that you have, especially the long-term important ones, because those are the people that can truly be the champions that you have in your life to continue to push you and hold you accountable, because accountability is such an important piece of setting a goal. One stereotype we tend to fall into is when I think about setting a goal, I'm doing it in the context of my role as a wife, as a mom, as an employee. And that's not always bad, but depending on the goal, it may have no relevance. And so you want to make sure that you don't do that, because you really could limit your potential and box yourself into something when you don't really need to box yourself into that situation. And then when you define yourself, making sure that you're not focused on the internal things, the car you drive, the house you have, the job you have, the clothes that you wear, the possessions that maybe are how you're defining yourself, because those could also be very limiting in the goals that you really want to be able to achieve. So knowing yourself and understanding your identity, and then having a grasp on the values, are really foundational components of how you set and accomplish your goals. So I'd like to open it up to the group. And Carron, I'm going to start with you. Is there ever a time that you've limited your goal potential by defining yourself in a stereotypical term?
Yeah. I definitely have done this. So I am a single mom. And so often, definitely early in my career, I set goals and I limited myself based on what I thought I could accomplish and still be a good mother to my child. So a lot of my career aspirations kind of took a back seat. But in some ways, so for me, there were times where I felt like I really can't do this, and and be a mom. And until I had a conversation with a mentor, and I had a mentor who was like, you can still travel, but travel in an unconditional way. So instead of getting on a plane every week with my 3-year-old, I would take temporary relocations and just be in the location where I was working. If that job was longer than a year, that was allowed under Accenture policy. And it allowed me to continue to advance my career while taking care of my child. So there's times when I've done it where I'm like, I'm not sure I can do that. And then someone opened up a door to a way that I could get something done. And so but I've definitely done it at different times where if I didn't check in with someone else to check my thinking, I might have limited my forward progress, or limited what I thought was possible even for my child. So I had another occasion where I wanted to be the parent that was at every single one of her basketball games. And I wasn't sure how to do that and still, deal with the fact that she was older, I was traveling, and how do I make that work? But I found a way. Again, I was able to work with my project teams, and sometimes that meant instead of coming home on a Thursday night, I was coming home Thursday morning so I can make a Thursday night game, or that kind of thing. But working through those only happened when I opened myself up to possibilities. When I kind of shut it down, I was like, oh, I don't think I can do it. I can't make this commitment because I don't want her to be disappointed in me, and I have this job that's requiring that I do certain things. So I definitely had that ongoing battle. My first thought being limiting, and then kind of breaking out of that, and how can I make this happen? Let me talk to somebody, because
Yeah.
usually somebody else could bring a perspective that I didn't have.
And it sounds like you're important, maybe long term, maybe not even long term, but the important relationships that you had were with individuals that could really help drive
Yes.
that, and give you that kind of open mindset for a different point of view,
Yes.
which is also so important. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Lana, what are some things you've done in your life to help establish a strong sense of self-awareness? If you think about attitude, self-image, who you are, who you want to become, what are some of those things for you?
Yeah, so it's this segues perfectly. So we couldn't have written this any better, but based on what Karan said and going to other people and getting that advice that from mentors and that feedback, it really segues into getting feedback all the way around, right? Not just on what our limitations that we're creating, but in addition to that, um, what are what are some of the things that we need to do better, right? We talked about our personal mission and vision, or our values, and so
Mhm.
having been given some advice to write my personal mission and vision before I created a professional one many years ago, I was able to put on paper those things that are important to me, which is like treating, every human being with dignity, right? Now, do I do that all the time the best that I can? Absolutely not. I'm human. I'm not a robot. But in the aspect of that, I had to force myself to go to my, my personal board of directors, right, is what we call them, to say, hey, the people that are the truth tellers who are going to tell me whether I like it or not, but in a very caring and constructive way, that I could do something better. So one of despite my values, one of the aspects I've had to work on for many years, um, first unknowingly, but now knowingly and consciously, is compassion. While I have compassion, I don't always show that compassion for various reasons, whether it's stress related, the pressures of life, personal experiences that I've had, it doesn't always shine through. So I've actually had people say, I know you and I know you're a compassionate person, but this is not coming through. And so it's kind of like a whoa. And, to take that step back and be able to take a pause and then walk away and reflect and say, what am I doing that's not showing one of my core values as a human being, right? And so I can take that to my personal life, my personal relationships, and you carry that over into the workplace. And, anybody that you're collaborating with or working with, understanding that, hey, this may be an instance under high pressure that my value of compassion does not come through. How can I do this differently, or how can I do it better? So
That's incredibly important. And I think having that lens and asking not just yourself, but others around you, so that it gives you the ability to kind of calibrate that image so that you're not necessarily as far off, or you can get closer to who you want to be and who you want the world to perceive you to be as well. Really does help with the identity. And takes us to the next area, which is values. Without values, all goals have equal importance. If I make a to-do list every day, then if I don't have something that is the most important to me that's driven by the values of what I need to accomplish, where do I start? Sometimes I don't know. And when we're focused on goals, whether they're big or small, once we understand what those values are to us, then it is very easy to prioritize. If I think about work-life balance, when there are things that come up, I'm going to have really important goals that I've set for my personal life as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, a daughter, whatever it may be, or for myself individually. But then, as an employee and someone looking to lead important causes across our organization, there's also goals that I have set. And my value system helps me to kind of balance out day to day, because life changes every minute, where the importance is really going to be weighted as far as those values are concerned. With them being the most fundamental beliefs, and really kind of giving you that foundation for how you drive your life, your career, any social aspect, any other important aspect of your life, just like your identity and having a sense of who you are, values are an essential step in creating something that's meaningful in the goals in your action plan, Lana, like you just talked about. There's a couple of important tips here, considering the attitude you have towards other people. Lana, like you said, wanting to treat people with dignity, but also not being a robot, being human. Some days we're just better than others. You could identify 3 moral issues that are really important to you, and make sure that they're kind of a North Star, that as you're going through and doing things, that you're aligning goals to what those values are. Um, if you think about obligations that you currently have that are going on in your community and your friends and your family, and then also being able to reflect on ideal and core beliefs. And this is for me something that's important, because I like to focus on my actions that are going to leave a legacy. What is it that you want to pass on to your own kids, to children in your life if you don't have children? Any child or anyone that you could kind of pass on ideas and beliefs and a legacy to. Those are also things that would help you identify and determine what your personal values are. Kevin, one thing I'd love to know, especially I think this is important when with the training experience that you have, and as you've kind of shaped and put together a lot of instructional design, attitude is a really important component of things. And having an attitude, or at least understanding the attitude that you have towards other people, that kind of creates or reflects a personal value system. What is important about that? As you're going through and thinking about goals, and also how do you continue to grow as an individual?
I think it's so important that as we are trying to figure out what is important in our lives, that we realize where other people fit into that. And the attitudes that we have towards other people is a big component of that. We have the opportunity to make up our life, and we get to choose each day how we're going to interact with people. So often we are buffeted by out external influences that we can take and say, oh, this is happening to me, or this is happening to that. But the reality is that things that are coming out, excuse me, coming after us or happening to us, we have the choice to make the decision as to how we're going to react to those. And a good example for me in my life is, if you have someone in your life that is toxic and ugly or whatever, you don't have to be the victim in the relationship. You can take the information that you're getting from them and turn that around. You can forgive somebody all day long for their actions towards you, but it's internally how you act towards, or how you react to the situation, that's really going to determine your success. And sometimes we have to make really incredibly hard decisions, distancing ourselves from those people that are toxic in our lives. And so And then the other side of that coin is to embrace those ones that love us and who nurture and take care of us and feel for us. So I really feel that attitude is an internal thing that we all can grow into, and that's going to determine our success. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm just taking a look at this. Okay, excellent point. Yes, we will come back to that, Piper, and it'd be great for us to discuss that a little bit further when we talk about what it means to actually kind of announce and share what your goals are, but also about how you're setting goals up. So let's jump into goals specifically and creating them and then really being able to kind of design right and then break them down. So the only difference between a goal is a dream and a deadline. If we have a dream, it's something that we know that we want to accomplish. I see myself doing something someday. I have a dream to achieve these things. If we set goals, what aligns to those goals is a time frame. There is a deadline. There is a line in the sand in order to get us there. And it is something that is critically important when it comes to the way that we actually set up a goal rather than just having a dream, a wish, a desire. For us to truly bring it to life, it takes more than speaking it into the universe to make things come true. I know that Oprah would not necessarily agree with that statement sometimes, but I think based on practical experience from all of us on this call, that we know that there has to be an action plan. There has to be some way to act and bring those things to life. So I don't know if any of you or many of you have heard of SMART goals, but SMART goals is something, Kevin, you mentioned it earlier, and we'll talk about it in just a minute. It's a fundamental way to approach any type of a goal that you want to achieve. Even if it's something that you're doing like a to-do list to accomplish things around your house on a weekend. Having SMART goals are going to be incredibly important. So they need to be specific. You've got an action that you can take, measurable, so that you have a way to track progress and outcome. If the goal's so big that you can't measure it, you got to break it down so that there are things that you can measure. Attainable. Is it actually possible to achieve the goal? I am not walking on water or air anytime soon, but are there things that I could do to try and get me closer to that? I don't know. I need to break it down and do the research to understand. Relevant. It's something that's realistic. I am not interested in bull riding. Therefore, my goal is never going to have bull riding involved in it because there's no relevance in that to me. But there may be for someone that lives in a rodeo world. Time bound, again, going back to the difference between dreams and goals as a deadline, is that there has to be a time frame. There has to be a line in the sand and a timestamp with which you need to accomplish something to get you to that goal. So, Kevin, I know that you talked about doing a lot with SMART goals and that being kind of a fundamental piece of the training that you develop and some of the work that you've done. What are tips that you have for creating those in your personal or professional life?
I think the first thing that we need to have is a vision, and a vision is a picture of future success. And once we have that vision, then we can, and that can be on a really small level or it can be on a grandiose level as well. And I think that when we start breaking our goals down, I loved what you said about the fact that if the goal is too big, break it down into smaller chunks, because we can all work on something small and that is an important step towards the bigger goal, but it has to be a specific thing that we can do. And then as far as the rest of this, one of the things that I think really helps is for me is to write those letters down on each of my goals and to say, okay, what is specific about it? What is measurable? Is it attainable? How relevant is it to me? And then what time frame am I going to give myself to do that? Because I love that quote about the difference between dreams and goals is a deadline. It's that's I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Karan, if you think about over your career and in your role as a mom and the things that you have done and what you shared with us earlier about really overcoming that mindset to give yourself the freedom to expand the career opportunities that you had, but still be the mother that you wanted to be. Is there a time that you set a goal for yourself in that experience where you didn't necessarily use the SMART guidelines that made it harder for you to accomplish that goal? And if so, would you be willing to share?
Absolutely. So I will I will use the goal that I just achieved. In December, I got promoted to managing director. Um,
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. But when I thought about, when I really said, you know what, I want to get to that point, was probably about 10 years before this point, right? So 10 years before this point, I was like, you know, I've been here, I've enjoyed what I'm doing. I think I want to make it to managing director. And I talked actually to a mentor of mine, and I told him that. I was like, you know what? I think I want to make it to managing director. He's like, okay, well, let me know when you're ready. And I said, okay. And that was where I kind of stopped because I didn't get like, I want to make it to managing director by this point. Like I didn't set a time boundary. I knew it was attainable, but I didn't know how to properly measure my progress towards it and put the right relationships in place, put the right the type of work that I was doing in place to really make it attainable for me. And so it took me extra time until I really was like, you know what? Okay, so if I want to make it, well, my first step now, Accenture's changed their model. I'm going to make it to associate director first. All right, I decided I'm going to make it to associate director, and it's going to use it as a stepping stone. And then I worked with somebody. I built a power map to understand what are those relationships that I need to have. I made sure I got staffed on the right type of projects, and I made it. And then it was like, okay, now that I made it here, now what do I need to do to get to that next level? And it took me longer, but once I really put my goals to paper with really actionable steps, then it was then achieving it was kind of like I got there and then I was like, okay, now what? I need to do, I don't even know if I celebrated my success of getting there because then it was like, okay, now I'm focused. I'm focused. Let's figure out what's the next thing. But it did take me a while, right? Because I didn't time bound it. I didn't put measurable progress steps in place. And it happened immediately once I did. Like literally the year I decided to do it, the next year I got associate director. The year I decided to do it, the next year, I got managing director. And I got managing director during a pandemic. And there was a lot of stuff going on in Accenture, but I had an opportunity to really demonstrate my reach, my influence, and what I could do from a bring money to the table standpoint that allowed it to happen. Once I really focused on, I have measurable steps in a time box situation so that I could get there.
Excellent. And that's such a nice transition into what we want to talk about next, which is actually writing down your goals. And your example is perfect in the importance of us doing this and starting at kind of that long-term goal vision. And then as you can see here, breaking it into mini goals and then actionable tasks and then identifying the reward and then telling yourself, helping yourself understand, why is this goal important to you? Knowing all of those things, and in the example that you just shared, Carron, having it documented was critical. Even something as simple as that, although it's not as easy as it sounds to just write all that down, there's some real thought and introspection that has to come into the process and journey of that. But it's definitely kind of a good starting point to get you to those goals once you know more about yourself. And you identified this too, being clear on what it was that you wanted. It helped you stay motivated. It also narrowed your focus. You knew exactly what the path was to get you to the goal that you were looking to accomplish. And it gave you those realistic timeframes to work towards. So, Karan, in your example, you started out and just said, this is what I want to do without really time bounding it. And then you said, okay, well, let's make it happen. But then making it happen was kind of that big end goal, rather than it being, let's look at the mini goals that we can accomplish along the way so that we're also able to celebrate our progress. rewarding ourselves is something we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's critical to motivate us to continue going through the journey and sometimes the hard work to get to the bigger goal as we work towards the smaller goals. There was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, do you mind if I chime in
Oh,
here, or you want to?
go
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of want to tie everything together because we talked about writing those goals down. You're seeing how much more successful you can be with writing it down.
Mhm.
And then Piper brought up the aspect of who do you share it with, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that circle, that trusted circle, that board of directors, the people who are truth tellers, though, but are also going to pump you up, right? They're not going to break you down if you don't. If you're not successful. So I wanted to just, say a little bit about that, and we can obviously talk more about that later. But I also wanted to say it doesn't matter where you write these goals down, but I write them down everywhere. So, I mean, I'll put the small increments in my calendar. I'll put them in my notes. I'll put them, stickies on the wall or on my mirror. I mean, it is the more you on my refrigerator door. So I mean, the more you write them down, the more chances are you'll be successful. And then the more you do express that outwardly, I mean, there really is some neuroscience, psychology behind it, is when you outwardly express that goal, you again, it goes from 30 times to, I don't know what the number is, but like somewhere closer to 50 times. So,
Yeah.
you want to express that, but you want to be careful about, who you express that to and how you express it. But also, finally, I just wanted to say there is no shame in failure, right? So I mean, if you do fail, I mean, fail fast, right? And then keep moving, reset your goal. Maybe you change the goal, maybe that goal isn't appropriate for you. So
Mhm.
definitely you just keep pressing through.
And also, I think that's such an incredible point. Fail fast, fail often, so that you can get up and start over, or get up and try again. Sometimes it's not even that you have to change the goal because the goal isn't right for you. Sometimes it's just changing the path to get to the goal. And we get stuck in this mindset that there's only one path to the goal, when in reality, maybe we need to take a step back and realize there are other ways to get us there, and that we have to be flexible when it comes to how we go about doing that.
And Haley, can you go? Yes, this slide right here. So I will tell you that the last box, why why is my goal important, was really my motivator. So and in true confession mode. So I lived my first 50 years of life really fast. I had a lot of fun, and it was, but by the grace of God that I made it to 50. But because I did, one of the things I said when I made it 50s, all right, God, you get the next 50. Whatever I need to do to help other people, that's what I want to do. And so for me, that goal of making it to managing director wasn't for myself. When I really focused in on why do I want to get here, it was like, I want to show people that it can happen. That a single mom who raised her kid under the umbrella of Accenture, my daughter is 23. So she was raised under the umbrella of Accenture, that you can make it. It might not be a straight path, it might not be a direct path, but you can still make it. That is so much more motivating for me to put those steps in place to, I call it fail forward. When I don't quite make something, here's how I'm going to replan it and get there. That's what's important.
Yep.
And then I realized, then it's not all on me, right? I think the best goals are ones that you need help to get there. You're not going to, I tell my daughter all the time, if you set a goal that you can achieve without any help, that goal's too small.
Mm.
And if for you to get there, for me to make it to managing director, I needed a whole board of directors to
Right.
help in that process. And
Yep.
so you got to think about that when why is this goal important, becomes the motivator for you. So
Such a good example. Yeah, that's such a good example. And it ties back to that value and identity that you start with. If you know those things about yourself, and like you said, this is the deal that you made and what you wanted to accomplish and why this is important now, but 10 years ago it may not have been. Your goal would have been different because your values or what was important in your belief system at that time may have just been in a different place. And so those are also, fundamental to help drive kind of what is that intrinsic reason that you want to push forward to accomplish this.
And if I can just add,
Yeah.
sometimes you need to ask that, why is this goal important? You write that down, And then you say, well, why is that important to me?
Hmm.
And you answer that. And sometimes you have to take that 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 levels to get down to the crux of why you are motivated to do that goal. Because you may not just have it on the very first thing, but if you keep asking yourself that, why is that goal important to me? And why did I write that answer? And why did I write the answer below that? You can really dive down and get to the core of why something is so important to you at a level that is pretty impressive.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. And that's where you can get into this breaking down. So in the picture here, this is kind of a long-term goal. And why am I selecting this? But this picture is looking at truly breaking down a single goal. When am I hoping to achieve it? When do I think I'm really going to achieve it? What are the steps? What are the things that could get in the way? And in my mind, this is something that's so incredibly important about just the psychology of how our brains are wired to motivate us or demotivate us. Um, so we've talked about, SMART goals and really being able to break something down. If we're doing it, we need to set a time, but it's not just a time bound thing where I'm setting, I want to have this accomplished in 6 months. If there's a goal that's critically important to me, I need to commit a set amount of time to it a day. For me, at the beginning of the pandemic last year, I knew going into it that it was going to be an incredibly stressful situation because, Carron, as you said, Accenture was crazy busy. My work life did not slow down, it sped up tremendously. But now I had 3 kids and a husband all at home that were operating in different ways and doing different things that all needed to be on a computer. Some needed assistance, some did not. How was I mentally going to handle the situation? And I knew that in order for me to do that, I needed to take care of myself. So the best way was to commit that 30 minutes every day, I was going to set aside time to make myself a priority. It didn't matter if I went and I sat in the pantry and closed the door and no one was allowed to come talk to me. If I went for a run, if I got in my car and drove circles around my neighborhood, if I went to the grocery store alone, whatever it was, I dedicated that 30 minutes to myself. And by doing that, it allowed me to accomplish personal goals that I had set for myself. But if I hadn't actually set the time every day to make that a priority, then I would have never been able to actually develop the right habits in order to accomplish the goals, whether it was a big goal or the many goals within that I needed to for myself. There's also the quantity aspect, and this is going to depend based on whatever the goal is that you have set. But really trying to set a quota, whatever it is, as it relates to the goal, is something that is measurable. It makes it easier for you when you're breaking down your goals to really get there. And then looking at the actions that you can take and those milestones, small steps, baby steps, every day, every week, whatever it is that you want to measure that's not so overwhelming that you demotivate yourself, but instead that are very attainable. They're sub actions, they're micro actions, they're things that you can do. So at the end of each day, you feel like, I've accomplished this. Yes, I'm going to go start the next one tomorrow. And that way it gives you the feeling of achievement. Um, it's certainly something that is going to be a positive driver. So when we think about it, and Lana, this is something that you talked about, visualizing goals. A lot of people have vision boards and they put things out there, or, Lana, like you, I am a sticky note freak. Like, I have them everywhere. They're all over the place. I'm constantly writing out where I need to do things, what I want to accomplish. They're all over my house. But visualizing your goals is not just writing them down and putting them out there somewhere, or even for that matter, having a vision board that you've got in your closet or on your refrigerator door or in your office or in your bedroom, wherever it might be. Those are the things that are motivating you towards your vision. There's also an important aspect mentally about truly mentally visualizing the goal that you want to achieve. And it's not just that I'm going to sit back and mentally visualize crossing the finish line at a race in a marathon. It's visualizing, what is the process that I'm going to go through? What's it going to be like when I wake up that morning, when I lace up my shoes, when I get ready to drive over to where the marathon is being held, what I'm doing when I warm up and stretch, what are the things that I'm thinking at the start line? The gun goes off and I start running. How am I mentally getting through all of those different moments in the process of achieving the goal of crossing the finish line at that marathon? And visualizing then those choice points. So you could think about like a fork in the road. You get to a fork in the road, and I'll go back to that marathon example. So I'm 5 miles in, and I have a cramp in my leg. At that point in time, I have a choice to make. I can continue going, I can stop completely, or I can stop and check myself and give me whatever it is that I might need physically or mentally to then take the next step and keep going. Any of the options are right. It depends on what's going to be the choice point for you and what choice are you going to make. But if I haven't visualized what I would do in that situation and the actions that I'm going to take when I'm faced with that type of a decision, a choice, a challenge, then I'm not prepared to really get myself to the next step in the goal or of accomplishing that goal. So it's incredibly important that we have those vision boards. We have those goals set out everywhere to constantly visually remind us of what we're looking to achieve. And it's also critically important that we are visualizing and mentally preparing ourselves for what's to come, that are obstacles, that are challenges, that are decision points that we need to make. And how are we going to take the time to think about how we interact or how we act in those moments? Lana, I know for you, vision boards, and we like what we had talked about. So I'd love to just get kind of your thoughts on. It sounds like you and I are a
what
lot
that looks
alike in the
like.
way that we
Yeah.
write that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So what for you, like what is it that works best when you're
so
visualizing and
so
going
first
through
I'm
this
gonna
process?
just tell a quick story. I mean,
Yes.
obviously my background is education. So when we work with at-risk populations, we actually make them, I say, but we have them put the cap and gown on and walk across a stage.
Mm,
It is the most symbolic yet meaningful thing they could ever do because it appeals to all the senses. I mean, there's fear, there's excitement, there's anticipation. They can hear things, they can taste things. If we're doing a mini, a mock celebration of that graduation. I mean, these are kids whose families, nobody has graduated from high school, right?
yeah.
And so we've got to get them to understand what it looks like. So just as they would do that, I would do the same. Like I would have to do my best to put myself in a situation where I could truly understand what it looks like, feels like, tastes like, what I hear, all appealing to all those senses where that's where the psychology kicks in. And so any experience you've had, any of that, the goosebumps, the
Right.
jitters, the, butterflies in your stomach, I mean, all of those things come to mind when you're actually putting yourself in a situation um, of the goal and anticipating that goal and understanding what those feelings are. And then the other thing I wanted to go back to is anticipating the obstacles you will face. It is so important to do your best. There's always going to be a wrench thrown in things, right? Like you might have, heaven forbid, an illness or death in the family or something magnanimous, right? That happens. Who knew that COVID was going to happen? If you had goals going on and you got derailed, obviously it was understandable, but nobody could have anticipated that. But if you anticipated a wrench of any kind, a challenge of any kind, then you were better equipped to move on and continue to complete and see those goals through, right, and accomplish them. So I think it's about doing whatever you can to put yourself mentally and have all of those sensories appealed to so that
Mm,
you have a true understanding of what it will be like when you get there.
yes, absolutely. So good. And then I think as we move to the last piece and what we talked about, being able to reward yourself, understanding what is a realistic reward and not basing that reward on something of making a deal with a friend. Karan, you talked about if you don't have others helping you achieve these goals, they're too small. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't achieve a goal that you've set forward and there are others involved, that if you miss a deadline or that something happens and not achieving that goal, you're going to pay them $100, right? It's not about the accountability in rewarding yourself. There is an accountability factor that is underlying in all of this, but rewarding yourself is really coming down to thinking through the things that are positive consequences with the big goal, but with the mini goals, and really looking at, once you've broken down and you understand what are the things to accomplish, rewarding yourself for that, and giving your chance in the psychology and literally the human hormones that we have in our body, the dopamine, to spike in our brain and our body when something has happened and that we have accomplished it, that it is success that we have achieved, even if it's small, because what that does is it motivates us to take the next step. And those are the things that are also intrinsic in understanding yourself and understanding what are your values and the things that are truly going to drive you. If, Karan, you were not as interested in achieving managing director because the deal that you made with God was that the next 50 years were his to be able to serve and serve to the value of others and show others what they could accomplish in similar position to yours, there would be less motivation for you to get there if you didn't have that knowing and understanding about yourself. And then really being able to give yourself small rewards, pats on the back, whatever it may be. Let's have coffee. At that point, maybe that's when you socialize your success, right? You share that at that point in time instead of sharing that this is the goal I'm going to achieve. It's kind of, I tell my husband all the time, he'll go, oh, I'm going to go lose 30 pounds, which he can do in 2 weeks. And it's infuriating to me. But he'll set that goal and I'm like, no, because then all you're talking about with everyone else around you is that you're working towards that goal. How about I'm going to focus on the small things that I can do to get me to that, but I'm breaking it down so that I'm rewarding my choices instead of rewarding the end game or the end goal that I have of losing 30 pounds. It makes it better for everyone because then the people around you also want to reward you. They want to help drive that dopamine in your brain and body as well and say, good job. And then you're like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to get to that bigger goal, whatever that goal is. And then I'm going to reach that goal. I'm going to make a new goal. And so it just kind of continues to give us that positive energy and those positive chemicals in our body to continue the journey. And rewarding ourselves is critical to that path. It makes it easier, especially when we face some of the obstacles that we know that we're going to face along the way, no matter what the goal is. Karan, in your journey, it sounds like sometimes you said that you didn't really stop and smell the roses and reward yourself like you should have, to acknowledge the work that you'd put in and reward yourself for each step along the way. Do you think that at any point slowed you down in achieving your goal?
Yes. So it is something that I have worked on tremendously because I recognize in me, I am a natural kind of get her done, get her done, get her done, get her done. And that by itself is motivating to me. But I have actually had mentor tell me one time, we just got that done and that's because of you. Why aren't you celebrating? I was like, celebrating? What? I mean, first of all, why? It's part of the job. Let's just keep going. But then I recognize those around me, they also need it as well, right? So there are times where I have set the goal that I knew I needed to do or set the vision really of what the team needed to accomplish. And we set up kind of tasks and goals along the way. And if I didn't stop to celebrate the 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 pivotal moments along the way, those interim milestones, that was as motivating to the rest of the team and myself as getting to the finish line. I came to that realization, and I came to that after failing and not doing it and seeing the result, because it's a kind of a downer when you accomplish something and it's not recognized, right? So and I am one of those people. So in our use of our strengths, significance is important to me. And what significance ultimately means is around that kind of that recognition and that legacy. So what am I leaving behind that will stand when I'm no longer there? And so those things are important to me, but I didn't recognize the psychological importance of those interim milestones, of the celebrations, of the kind of pause and an admiration of what was accomplished before you just walk into the next thing.
Yeah.
So I'm better at it now. I am better at it now. COVID has made it hard. So I've had to come
Yes.
up with new ways for my team and for myself to celebrate different things because being locked down has made it a little harder to do, right? I'm one of those people that like to gather together,
Right.
usually over food. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not able to do any of that right
That's
now.
hard.
So it's made it a little more challenging, especially like, making it to MD. I wanted to like be able to even take my family out and, let's go and have steak.
Yeah.
And
Or
just
celebrate on a trip and you can't.
exactly,
Yes,
exactly. Let's
yes.
have steak in Italy.
That's
That
right.
I can't do any of that right now.
Yeah.
So just finding the smaller ways to reward yourself is important. And being wise about it, but I do know that it is a motivator. So you have to do that. You have to put the interim milestones in place.
Mhm.
So it's not you're not waiting till you get to the finish line. You
Yeah.
can kind of celebrate lap 1
Yeah.
and then lap 2 and then lap 3, that kind of thing along the way.
Right. Excellent. So I know that we only have about 5 or 6 minutes left, and I wanted to open it up to the group for just kind of Q&A and see if there was anything specific that you all had questions about, anything else, Kevin, Lana, Carron, that you wanted to add to the conversation. I'd love to use the time now to do it. And you can certainly, I know that there's been kind of a chat going on in the window, but if anyone wants to come off of mute, then we can certainly talk about that. I'm just going to scroll through here in the meantime and see if there's anything else that we wanted to bring up from the discussion.
I
So
think
while
Lana's
you're doing
done.
that, I just wanted to mention that oftentimes when I try to reward myself, it frequently involves something that is costly. So, not knowing what everybody's situation is, especially with COVID, if you have somebody in the household that's not working right now, I mean, we've been fortunate, here to remain working, but, some of us have, significant others that aren't working, or maybe brothers or sisters or parents or, are unable to work. So understanding that you're not always, financially, that doesn't always financially make sense, right? To
Mhm.
reward yourself with, even if you could, a trip, or, so, something material. Just think, get creative. As Karan said, it's been harder during COVID, but we have to think outside of the box and get more creative. So, whereas maybe I would normally say, if I get this done, I'm going to go take a 20-minute walk. Instead, I might say, if I get this done, and I can take the time, I'm going to do a 3-mile, 3-hour hike instead. Like,
Yeah.
because those are the things that also motivate me and also create dopamine, right?
Mhm.
So, and
That's
I,
right.
and so I know that that's also, it's in my best interest to do something like that than other, instead of taking myself out to dinner, but it's not costing me money to do, right? And so I have to be thoughtful about how I choose those rewards.
So good. So, so true. Questions? Anything else that we have not talked about? I don't see anything else in the window question wise, but great conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
Better to kind of like, so if I have like a 20-page paper that I have to have finished at the end of the semester, is it better to like aim high on the weekly basis to say I'm going to do 5 pages this week, or be like I'm going to do 3 pages this week? Like what's the better like way to go about that?
Ooh.
I mean, I have some thoughts. I would rather, again, I would take it in smaller chunks. I would actually do stream of conscious brainstorming first on what my paper is and what it's about. So rather than being, oh, I got to do this many words and this many words, I'd get the bigger picture and then pull back. Then you can start to break it down depending on where your deadline falls, right? So I think that, whiteboarding, brainstorming, decision tree, whatever you're using that helps you. If it's just an outline, fine. To be sure that you're accomplishing the goal of what the purpose of the paper is as well. That will keep you on track. And so, I mean, I do believe that you want to start there. Now, once that's done, and then you say, I still have, 1,500 words to write. If you have, 3 weeks left, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you set a time and you put it on your calendar and you decide to check yourself. And if you didn't make the 750 words that week, that's okay, but you have to reconfigure what the rest of your goal is and be realistic about how much can I leave and still get this done. Kevin, I'm sure you have something to add to that.
I just have one little thing to say that I think is really powerful that I learned many, many years ago, and it's almost magic. When you declare yourself in a role, whether that role be father or mother, or uh, in my case, a lot of it has to be in roles I've taken on in volunteer organizations. There's something magical that happens with you declaring yourself in a role, in that you become that person and things can open up to you because you have said, I'm going to take on this and I'm going to do my very best in it. So that would be kind of my parting comment to everybody, is that, you know, take the time to say, okay, I am X. I am the best employee. I am a candidate for managing director, whatever it is. Those things will help bring you into a place where you are that role and you can see yourself there and have faith in yourself.
So good. I think there's no better way to wrap the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.